The following episode was recorded in front of a live streaming audience on Saturday, January the 18th, 2025.
You know who you are? Steeven is my name. Even Steeven.
Will you say something, Steeven?
Steeven or else media.
You're listening to the Superman Super Show, and this is episode number 80, The Story of the Century. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show post-crisis edition. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Hi. That's what the script says.
It does. I literally have in the notes, Ed says hi.
Ed says hi. So, hi.
You feel free to say what up.
No, I'm not going to ad lib and go off script, man, because that'll just, can't do that.
Yeah, it might throw me off. It'll
who knows? It just, the whole world will just crumble or something, yeah.
Ruin my game for the whole rest of the episode. I won't know what's going on. The whole time I'll be thinking, why didn't he say hi?
Or what did he say? I didn't I can't ask him.
Did he say hello? How dare he? That's not in the script.
Yep.
None of this is in the script, though.
No, this is way off script.
That's right. We're going a little crazy this time around. And hey, speaking of this time around, today we're looking at the Man of Steel #2. This issue is published by DC Comics on July the 24th, 1986, and it is entitled The Story of the Century. It was written and penciled by John Byrne. Dick Giordano was the inker. The letters were by John Costanza. The colors were by Thomas Ziuko. And here's what happened in the issue. Superman has officially arrived in Metropolis, and the city will never be the same. From stopping purse snatchers to foiling bank robberies, the Man of Steel wastes no time making an impression. Meanwhile, Daily Planet editor Perry White assigns star reporter Lois Lane to the ultimate challenge. Get the first exclusive interview with Superman. Lois, as determined as ever, tries everything to track him down, but Superman proves elusive. Desperate to get her story, she takes a risky gamble, driving her car off a pier, knowing that Superman will save her. Her bold move pays off when Superman not only rescues her, but answers a few of her burning questions. Thrilled with her scoop, Lois races back to the newsroom, confident she has the headline of the century. But there's a twist. Lois Lane learns she's been scooped by the planet's newest hire, Clark Kent, who somehow managed to land the first article on Superman. Frustrated but intrigued, Lois begins to wonder just how this mild-mannered reporter got the drop on her. Ed, what'd you think of this one?
I thought the second issue kind of was starting to fall into more of the, maybe, at least for me, the Superman tropes that I'm familiar with. Seeing him saving the day, seeing what he's doing, Lois Lane trying to get an interview, owning back all the way to the Golden Age stories we've been reading, Clark getting the scoop on Lois, which now is the standard in those Golden Age stories. Didn't used to be when they started out, but for whatever reason, they turned, and it's turned into a funny kind of competition that, again, in the Golden Age stories, Lois always seems to lose. So interesting picking up here. Now, I had a thought, after reading this, or during, whenever it occurred to me, and I'm going to pose it, but I don't want an answer because the answer is too in-depth for right now.
Okay.
But it's this. Okay, we have, as collectors, we have grouped comic books into the ages. Golden, silver, bronze, and then after bronze, whatever you want, a modern, a copper, atomic, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
So those have been delineated by mainly by styles of writing, kind of assisted by styles of art, but mainly by styles of writing. And they use convenient changes in characters typically to break at least gold and silver silver and bronze, and then probably bronze and after. Now, my question is this not the first or last issue, the first appearance of the bronze or modern? Yeah, it'd be the modern age Superman.
Yep.
And if so, why is this book not sold as a major key when you go to buy it?
I have no clue. That's a good question.
Because I can buy all 6 of these for $15 to $20 on eBay.
Yeah.
Before shipping. So, but you look back, and of course the Golden Age first appearance is going to be worth money. That's obvious. We see that every time one of those come up to auction, one of the actions. Now, to further complicate things, and this is where we can just move on, but you have the different ages. But then the question becomes, well, is this the appearance or reappearance of the Earth 1 or the Earth 2 or the Earth whatever, super, and all that kind of stuff, which you would think is related to the ages of the books, gold and silver, and it is to a point, but it's not. So in that this is the first appearance of the modern age Superman, would this also not mean that it's the first appearance of Earth, whichever Superman? I think it's Earth 1 or Earth 2 is the
post-crisis Earth. I don't know if they have a designation because it's supposed to just be the only Earth.
It's the only one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Now that, of course, changes fairly quickly. But
well, and I remember at is it Infinite Crisis or one of those that the Lois and the Earth, whichever, the Golden Age Superman, the one with gray in his hair, are left to live in their own little bubble world.
Yes.
So that's Earth S for Superman, whatever it would be. So that's that one. That would be, I guess that would be Earth 2.
Yes, that Superman is that Superman's Earth 2 Superman. They had with them, however, Superboy Prime from Earth Prime, which is supposed to be our world. It's been a while. It's been a few years since I've watched or read Crisis and all that, but
all that stuff starts to get confused. And the other Superman, not the one that lived with Lois, but the other Superman died, right? He got beaten by Superboy Prime. Wasn't he beat to death by him?
I haven't read Infinite Crisis since the 2000s when it came out. It's one of those I've been meaning to get back to, especially that era, because that's when I first started podcasting. That's the old Just Another Fanboy days. But I don't remember his Earth 2 Superman, his exact fate from Infinite Crisis. I do know that Earth 2 Superman is basically, he's the Golden Age Superman, but he's not necessarily the Golden Age Superman that we're reading right now. It's like once when the Silver Age basically launched. Right. That Superman became the Earth 1 Superman, and then the Golden Age So it's very confusing. And honestly, I don't know if I would call this the first appearance of the modern age Superman, because I don't think this is the same Superman that's being published today. I know that, oh my God, when was that? It was either very late 90s, early 2000s. There was another, it wasn't quite a reboot, but there was another Superman origin story told called Birthright that Mark Waid wrote, and I think Lionel Francis Yu did the art on. And again, I don't think it's a reboot. I think Mark Waid actually kind of takes John Byrne's version of Superman and just adds to it. Because I know that there's a bit in that where, because some of it deals with, we talked about in that first issue how Clark Kent just kind of, I'm leaving and I'm going to go travel the globe and help people. And so some of Birthright deals with a bit of that. I think he's in Africa at one point, which I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So see that it's trying to, okay. So back to your question, which I believe, let's see, what did you think? And then our script here says, Ed and Steeven give their first impression. So basically the question is, what is my impression initially? What did I think initially? So, like I said, it didn't strike me as much in the feels as the first issue did. And I definitely saw in the first issue what Byrne was trying to do as far as the character, and that's what appealed to me. This, not only being a time jump between the first and second issues of, I don't think we're told how long, are we? Did I miss that? I don't think it says.
Let me look it up while you're talking, because I think it's...
Maybe somewhere she says something about several weeks that she's been trying to get an interview, or several weeks since he appeared, or something like that. But there's some amount of time jump. And then, like I say, we start falling into the Superman/superhero tropes, doing what you would expect a superhero to do. Lois finally getting an interview was not overly entertaining to me. Probably the fact that Superman ultimately knew what was going on and told Lois that he knew what was going on, to me, that maybe was the high point of that sequence of story. I have probably more questions about her and Luthor, the way that she's treating him, even though she is sucking up his resources, and she doesn't seem to feel indebted to the fact that the resources are available. You know, that whole relationship seems, well, without any explanation, it just seems, it raises questions. I want to know how and why things are whatever they are, because it looks kind of weird to me. Especially if I were Luthor, it would look way weird to me. So something, whether they had a relationship in the past and she stopped it, but he never did, or he wants a relationship and she knows, but she's not acknowledging, or, there's something more than just, well, he's the most powerful man in Metropolis. Yeah, but it's...
Yeah, his appearance in this issue is very, it's almost nothing. It's very foreshadowing. They get into it a bit more in issue number 4. But this is issue 2 here. So I have talked about, like I said in the last episode, I've talked about these 6 issues a couple of times before. And, I have said that for me, I feel like I'm a big fan of Man of Steel. I'm a big fan of various bits throughout each 6 of these issues, but I've always felt that taken as a whole, it almost feels like John Byrne's like, all right, I have to tell this, I have to set up Superman in these 6 issues. I'm not all that excited about doing it. I just got to get through these 6 issues, and then I can start doing what I really want to do on Superman, right? I just got to set it all up first based off of what I want to do and what DC will allow me to do and what DC wants me to do. And so I think as a whole, the miniseries suffers a slight bit, but I don't know. There's just, for example, this issue right here, it's not, I mean, it's kind of a classically themed issue, right?
Okay.
Superman is making his costume debut in Metropolis. He does a couple of things that are very classic Superman that really endear me to him that we'll talk about when we get to those bits. And of course, Lois is running all over town trying to get that interview, which she finally does, and it doesn't do her any good. But I think the biggest thing I get from this issue, coming back to it since, the 80s, is just Lois's 80s fashion. She goes through like 19 different wardrobe changes in this issue, and I love her clothes throughout this entire issue. Some of it's, and I'll point out some of my favorite outfits when we get there. But
it's almost a 60s Marvel female kind of rolling through. Also, I do want to say, anyone listening, understand, because I understand, that reading this now as a 56-year-old man that has read tens of thousands of comic books is very different from the dude that, what is this, 86?
86.
So you're looking at 28, right? 38. Then the dude 38 years ago who would have read this with far less comic book reading under his belt, but also at the time it was coming out, I would have known and not known as much as anyone else reading the books. So it's reading older books like this, and particularly if you're going to talk about them, reading them just to read them is one thing. We enjoy or don't enjoy what we, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to explain or account for it. But now talking about the book and being in the place now where we as a reader are versus wherever we might have been when the book first came out are two very different things. So it's very difficult to be as positive or optimistic now with all of the age and tire tracks under our belt than we would have been when Watchmen, when Sandman. Oh, can I talk about Neil Gaiman? Is that going to get me banned or whatever?
Talk about him.
These other books when they first came out and they were the thing. I don't know how many times I see people who are younger than me complain about how often things like, say, Watchmen are talked about because they don't get it. They don't understand. And that's fine. I'm not saying that in a pejorative way, but it's very Star Wars, the very first Star Wars movie, when it came out, if you were alive then and able to see a movie, it was a completely different world than any movie that comes out now. You can't compare. It was a different life experience that, and so novels, TV shows, movies, music, anything pop culture consumes, it's the same. It is very difficult to be critical of something if you weren't there, to be fairly critical about something if you weren't there when it was first released. And I try to be as open as I can about things, but I understand that my jadedness at this point will come through with anything that I read. So, in saying that, it just didn't get me. That's now. Back then, it probably would have gotten me much more, particularly after just one issue. This is new. This is brand new. He's going John Byrne was like one or two or maybe three of the shits in comic books. So the fact that he was writing and drawing this both, that was, so I mean, all of these things. Whereas now, I see, I don't feel what they were trying to do. I can just see what they were trying to do because I'm too far detached from it to really feel it anymore in that same way. So.
Yeah. I have an anecdote that also involves Watchmen. During 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere in there when I was the first round of Just Another Fanboy, I said in an episode, because it wasn't until then, I didn't read Watchmen until that, the 2000s. That was the first time I'd read it. And I said in the episode that I felt that that Watchmen was overrated. And I got some flack for that. And, I don't remember how I responded to the anger back then.
Right.
But fast forward a couple of years, I'm at work and there's this dude that I work with that he's probably 5 to 10 years younger than me. And he makes a comment that the Beatles are overrated. And I just went, whoa. You can't say that. You can say you don't like the Beatles. You can say that you think the Beatles suck and that you don't get their music and it doesn't do anything for you. You cannot say that they're overrated because they are a huge influence on everything you listen to today. I went off on that dude. By the way, Billy D has shown up. Hey Billy D.
And that's, and I'm sure that there were those people who were older than us that we interacted with when we were in our 20s and that were thinking the same things because it's just and the bottom line is if you weren't there when it first came out, then you cannot possibly have an idea of what it meant at the time. Somebody can tell you, but that's very different from having experienced it. So, now I can say maybe now somebody talking about the Beatles, in a way, I think saying now that the Beatles are overrated, you could defend that. Depending on what's said, depending on the venue, you cannot take away, like you said, the impact that the Beatles have had in music, particularly in our country. So, are they overrated? Well, if a bunch of young people are talking about something 40 years old, I would have to argue that they don't know what they're talking about. And so they probably are overrated in what they're saying because they just don't know.
And it was in the middle of my diatribe going off on this guy that it dawned on me that's like, oh, this is like when I said that Watchmen were overrated.
There you go.
And I think I even at that point, because I think it was, you remember back in the day, DeFixer's Hideout?
Yeah.
He was the one that emailed me and was like, you can't say that. You're wrong about the blah, blah, blah. And I think at that point I reached out to him and I was like, I understand now. I get it. And it's like recently, a few years back, I saw Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys, a video of him on a radio show, and the host of the show was asking him, you know, what would you tell the young kids today who are you know, either you know, making their first albums or getting into rap, and he's like, they don't give a fuck what I have to say. And if I was their age, I wouldn't give a fuck what I had to say.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean,
he's like, you know, it's like when you're that age, you don't think about all that shit that happened before. You're doing what you're doing now. And, you know, that's it. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah.
It's all very relative. In a lot of ways, unfortunately. But it's all very relative. I still listen to podcasts all the time, and I shake my fists at these people that refuse to do research, just a little bit of research to learn that what they're saying is so dumb. But it's like, okay, that's fine. That's okay.
But to your point, you know, because I did read Man of Steel back in the day as it was coming out, you know, when I read it again. There are bits, there are times when you know, certain bits through certain issues and I'm just like, why did I even like this? And then there are times where this issue is an example where I'm taken back to 1986 and I just it's kind of a weird feeling where I feel who I am now, but I also feel who I was back then, and I can see that fun why I fell in love with Superman. And this is one of the issues. As much as I enjoy issue 1, this is like probably the issue back in the day that made me fall in love with the comic book version of Superman. Because this would have been the second Superman issue I had ever read. And and again, I'll point out bits and pieces here as we go in, you know, as you take us through a bit of a deep dive. Going into that though, real quick, because the first thing we're of course going to talk about is that opening splash page. And
Billy, I don't know if you were here from the beginning. We're talking post-crisis. We're not talking Golden Age.
Yeah, if you're here for Golden Age, hit the bricks.
So yeah, we're looking at Man of Steel issue number 2. So I guess 2 things. One for me, and one which I imagine is the point of this splash page. The point is to show Superman in his outfit, which I do like the way that he's doing that.
Billy D pipes in with, I get cranky when people, podcasters / bloggers, give the wrong attribution in regard to characters and their creators. I hear a couple of people say that Steve Gerber created Man-Thing and nearly died. Steve Gerber did create Howard the Duck, though. Is that right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, he created Howard the Duck.
Who first appeared in a Swamp Thing story, right?
No, not Swamp Thing. That's the different company.
No. Man-Thing.
Man-Thing. Yeah. So Billy, to your statement there, it seems like so often just the smallest bit of research, and they would not have made that mistake, or they wouldn't continue to make the mistake, or whatever.
Billy D says, and Steve is the best writer that Manny ever had, no question, but he didn't create him. Conway.
Steve Conway. Yeah. Okay, so Superman, I like the fact that he's smiling. That's cute. I like the way that Byrne did this. We are Perry White in this splash page. Now, Perry is not the narrator of the story. I believe the narrator is what would be called an omniscient narrator. It's a third person narrator. But for this image, it's Perry because he's having, I don't know, food, lunch, breakfast, I don't know. I would think it was breakfast, but she almost looks like she's eating a hamburger. So I don't know what meal it is, but they're eating at a table in a diner in Metropolis, and Perry is sitting facing Lois, and the main window of the establishment is in the background, so he can look past her out onto the street, and he sees Superman flying, kind of turned and twisted in an odd way so that you can see his full outfit, and he's smiling. And Perry apparently is taken aback because Lois is taken aback by Perry's reaction, and she's asking him what's wrong.
Billy D says he's never read The Run by Byrne, and he hides his head in shame, and he should.
Well, now, if you haven't read this miniseries, by all means, jump on. We're on issue 2. You should be able to acquire those. I was just talking after we started recording, I guess, about how you can get all 6 of these issues for anywhere from $15 to $20, which I don't know if that's, too much. I don't know how much you want to read the books, but they're not overly expensive. Hell, I look for books all the time. One book that is more than that I'd like to get. So to me, $15 to $20 for 6 issues isn't a whole lot.
And they have collected the John Byrne era in like 4 or so big, massive volumes.
But that's all of his stuff, right? That's Superman. That's what's the other book? Adventures of Superman.
Yeah, it's this Superman, Adventures of Superman, which Byrne wasn't involved in really at the beginning, and then Action Comics.
Okay.
But this splash page, this opening page there, I love it for 2 reasons. One, it's almost like you open up this issue, and right away it's just like boom. You get this sense that Lois and Perry were maybe in the middle of this conversation. Superman comes swooping by, and because Perry looks like all you can see of him is his hand and the cup of coffee that he's holding, and it looks like he's about to spill his coffee. So I'm just imagining the moments leading up to this panel, this splash page. She's probably talking about something, and he just suddenly kind of goes, "Whoa," and because she's like, "What's wrong?" And yeah, you see this smiling Superman behind her. The second reason I love this splash page actually just kind of dawned on me once we started reading Golden Age Superman. And we talked about it in one of the Golden Age episodes we recorded, how most of the time when we see Perry, it's usually from behind. He's sitting at his desk, and we're there to see Lois and Clark. So we don't
camera
see
over his shoulder.
Yeah, we don't see much of his face in those early issues. And so I don't know if that was John Byrne's intention with this splash page, but that's, of course I didn't get that feeling the first few times I read it. It wasn't until I started reading the Golden Age that I was like, I wonder if that's what this is meant to be. But
a couple of the things I want to point out. I like the guy's Eastern European hat over here on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, under Superman, the dude standing there. Any chance you know who that is?
Indiana Jones?
Well, close. How about,
I don't know.
How about Wolverine with the leather glove?
Okay,
and
the hat that he's like,
and the jacket. I don't know if it is, but I'm like, John Byrne, Wolverine. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'm stretching there. So
and above Superman is just a small bit of a billboard for underwear. And you can almost read the words, "Between me and my Calvins." So it's a Calvin Klein.
Dating it there.
Yeah, that's, it's funny because over the last couple of years, I've listened to a few various podcasts where folks have talked about this series. And, going back to the whole younger generation who maybe didn't read this when it started or whatnot. A lot of the complaints I hear from folks who didn't read it back then, especially folks who weren't alive back then, is how it's so dated. It's so 80s. And because it was made in the 80s. I can't imagine how hard it would be for a creator to do a book set in modern times and make it timeless.
Right off the top of my head, that means that the billions of dollars of product placement in movies now are not going to date the movies 40 years in the future. I mean, basically what you're doing is you're just showing how uninformed an ass you are by saying really dumb things like that. I mean, honestly, that's just it. There is no way to sugarcoat the fact that, well, that was just a dumbass comment.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, but that's all that's all you can say about it, because it's like, and a good thing for me is that indicators like that help me trim my podcast listening list. Because when I hear that once, I'm like, oh, okay, clip.
Done. Right?
Yep. There we go. Moving on.
Yeah, and and this is the issue. When I hear people making that complaint, this is the issue they usually point to because of Lois's 80s fashion. And that's
so ridiculous.
The Superman Super Show will return after these messages.
And now, back to the Superman Super Show.
Billy D tries to defend himself for not reading the John Byrne run, saying, mostly because I'm still trying to read/figure out pre-crisis DC, and I feel jumping to post-crisis would just confuse me. And you know what?
Probably,
in general, it would.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last time. Just trying to find, where do I start post-crisis DC? There's not an even line. Superman is easy, Wonder Woman is easy, Batman is not.
Yep. And I mean, a lot of other titles potentially that started after that would be, but as far as the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Superman and Wonder Woman, you at least have easy starting points.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that their story necessarily is any easier to understand.
Yeah, because
Batman just plowed right through. DC didn't even care. They're like, no, we ain't doing that with Batman.
Yeah, because I feel like even at this point in their publishing history, July of 1986, I feel like there was still a couple of issues that came out that month that were set pre-crisis. So you're getting both at the same time. There's no even dividing line, and that makes it difficult to just jump into post-crisis.
Like unlike, what was it? Was it New 52? I believe I brought this up last issue episode, that they stopped.
Yep.
And then they started. So you're like, okay, here is an obvious break in publishing.
Yep.
Unlike this new all-in thing that it's like,
I don't know. I've fallen behind on both of the big two. And in fact, I saw something today about Marvel, Dr. Doom's Avengers team.
Yeah, he's getting ready to have a big storyline this year from where he became the Sorcerer Supreme, because Steeven's in a recent 24 storyline, Doctor Strange needed to do something and could not figure out how to do it. So he asked Dr. Doom for help, and Dr. Doom's favor, if you do me one, the do me one was make me Sorcerer Supreme. And so Doctor Strange, when Doom came through, Doctor Strange had no other choice but to. And so now one of the major villains of the Marvel Universe is also the Sorcerer Supreme of the dimension. So it's like, okay, that can be good.
It feels like following, what was it, Secret Invasion, the whole Norman Osborn and his Dark Avengers and all that stuff. That's what it feels
basically like. That same kind of thing. I mean, they just, So, okay. That's Marvel. Next page, we continue with the visions of Superman. Obviously, John Byrne is wanting to draw this character because he starts with the splash page drawing him. But then this second page, it's about a third of a page panel, full on Superman in an a nice flight action scene. And again, to me, I noticed that Superman is kind of smiling. He's enjoying what he's doing, where he's at, who he is, or a combination or whatever. But he just seems to be, or not seems, he is in a good enough mood that it's coming across in his facial features. It looks to me like he's smiling. We see Perry here, full on, second page, and we already have a facial view of Perry and Lois. They're rushing out Lois has been trying to get an interview with Superman, just saw him, and so now she's supposedly going to chase him down and get that interview or follow him until. So I don't understand really exactly what she presumes that she's going to be able to do. She is only human. Superman is flying through the air. He can go anywhere at any time. And it's like, well, I'm going to follow him on foot. And when he what, Lois? When he what? So
you know what though? I love this Lois Lane, this version of Lois Lane, because she's just like, yeah, she runs out of a cafe to try to run down a frickin' guy who's flying. She thinks she can run him down off, because that's just, it's like if she had said, I'm not going to be able to catch up to him at this point. Perry, the guy's flying through the air. What do you expect me to do? That just wouldn't be,
right.
It just wouldn't be Lois.
It's out of character. Yeah. You're right. You're right. So now we see, I believe for the first time, because we did not see or even hear, I don't know, maybe there was a Luthor reference dropped in the first issue, but it would just have been name. Yeah, his name as being something.
This is our first partial appearance of post-crisis Luthor.
Yes, he's in a car. His chauffeur, he's being chauffeured somewhere. Turns out that he also wants to speak to Lois Lane. I don't know that that's necessarily what he's doing or what he's on his way to do, but it's kind of serendipitous that she's there. The chauffeur jumps out, tries to flag her down, that the boss, the chauffeur's boss, and there is some weight to that as it should apply to Lois by the way that the chauffeur is acting.
Yeah.
Wants to speak to her, but she is currently too busy, or she uses that as an excuse. I think she just uses it as an excuse. There's more to the Lois Luthor story than even we are being led to believe here so far, because the behaviors are just off for Lois. Now, Luthor, from what I understand of Luthor, is acting like Luthor. There's not really anything surprising there, but Lois uses this opportunity to blow him off, and we find out that Luthor is going to be out of the country for the next year. So in my mind, what that does is it automatically sets up between this scene here and the next time we see Luthor, which I imagine we will in this miniseries, it will have been a year or more. So we have like a time jump in waiting there, because I can't imagine that a year's worth of territory is going to be covered on page in this miniseries in just an issue or two, however long it takes to bring Luthor back. And Luthor can tell, he may be able to hear her, but he can certainly tell that she's giving the chauffeur the brush off. And so he lowers the window just to, I don't know what that's supposed to do, but we get a brow view from up above his nose of Luthor looking out. Moving on, the images of the town as she's walking through, I was kind of expecting her to be jumped by somebody. It doesn't necessarily look like it's the best part of town, or if all of the town is like this, Metropolis is in kind of a difficult way right now. I guess they certainly need a Superman, perhaps is what we're being told. Panels like this always interest me because I like to look for the signs on the buildings or things like that. And she's passing an antique shop, but there's nothing really to me that stands out about it other than that. The address is 1187, whatever street they're on. I don't know if the number has any significance anywhere. We're in 1986 in the middle of the year. So yeah, 1187. I don't know what that would be. So she finds, now all you youngsters out there, hold on. Okay. This is a thing. Lois finds a payphone and uses it to call into the paper. Oh no, I'm sorry, to call in to call in a favor. And a payphone, for those of you that is a phone that used to be in a little, either a thing on a wall or a booth that you could step into and you could close the door behind you to get out of the weather. Okay. Actually, for a while, Superman used to change his clothes in one of those things, believe it or not. And there's also allusions in hockey. He could stick handle on a phone booth. Somebody that's really, yeah, okay. So, and it's a phone, and you put money in it, coin, which is another thing, kids. They're coin money. That used to be a thing. And you'd put it in, and you'd and you could talk on a phone like we do on our cell phone. the method is the same way, right? You push them and you talk. The cell phone is in our hand. In the phone booth, you had to go, or a payphone, you had to go to it and do all that. You could talk. Yeah. I personally cannot remember the last time I saw a phone booth. Every now and then I still travel around and I run into a payphone somewhere.
Yeah.
Every now and then, like one every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Used to be in a mall here where I live, there was a bank of payphones.
Yep.
There was like 4 on one side and 4 on the other side. And they were set up in one of the hallways or one of the offshoots of the mall, right in the middle, so that people could use the phone to, call for a ride or whatever, but a bank of payphones. I haven't seen that in 20 years, probably. I haven't been in a mall with a bank of phones in it. So, okay. That's our history lesson for today. Friday, we'll have a little pop quiz on that. It'll be 5 questions. It'd be real quick, 10 points, 5 questions. That's it. So, you guys stay tuned for that.
But you do get the feeling from these 2 panels, those first 2 panels on this page, that if not, she's, either she's in like you said, a bad area of town, or Metropolis is just a dirty, crime-ridden city, at this point. And a lot of times you hear people who compare Metropolis to Gotham. Metropolis is the city of the future, and it's bright and blah, blah, blah. And Gotham is dark and dirty. And so Metropolis didn't get that way without Superman. And it's not quite there yet. Right.
Or now something else. Also, it could be that all of these people, which doesn't. Oh, actually, I'm confusing 2 things. The way that the environment looks is what you're speaking on. I was about to say something about the people and how they're reacting to Lois. It's almost like perhaps they recognize who she is.
Yeah, this cop looking at her while she's on the phone, he almost looks.
That's a side eye. If ever there was a side eye, that he's giving her the side eye.
It's like
he's talking with the prostitute. Is this supposed to be a prostitute?
That's what I would assume.
Yeah, they're friends on the street. She kind of just lets him know what's going on.
Just because of the big white fur vest. That's
something. Yeah. Now, this is the start of my questions about the relationship between Lois and Luthor, okay? Lois, just the page before, big as day, blew Luthor off. The reasons and why, whatever, doesn't matter. The fact is that she did. Now, she is in such good stead with Luthor that a page ago she can completely blow him off. And I mean, this, in eyesight, he saw her. She may have seen him or not, who knows, but let's presume that there was eye contact, and she still blew him off. And then minutes later, she picks up a phone and calls a favor of an employee of Luthor to use Luthor's company helicopter to take her in the air to see if they can see Superman. So I mean, the yam bag on this one is huge to do both of these things back to back. So something has to be going on about the relationship between the 2 of them, because normally that's not how, even in comic books, the world works. If you want, you give. That's typically the relationship. But to Lois, apparently, it's like, no, I want, and that's all there's been so far. So there's been some reciprocity somewhere along the way that Luthor allows this, particularly if he's the most important man in Metropolis, allows this type of behavior from this woman. And I do say that pejoratively because I would imagine that's how he looks at it. This woman to treat him that way.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, we'll get a little bit more information on their quote unquote relationship and all that when we get to issue 4. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay.
Because there's a moment in issue 4 where, that's all I'll say.
Okay. So she is in a helicopter now. She realized that on foot she wasn't going to be able to keep up with Superman. But in however long it took her to realize that, to get to a phone, to make a call, to get on the helicopter get in the air, her get in the helicopter and look around for Superman. She presumes that we will be able to find him again. I'm like, what? Dude could be anywhere. What are you talking? He could be anywhere on the planet by this point. And
Well,
you've taken 30 minutes, 45 minutes to do all this and get in a helicopter. It's like
10
you're not going to
minutes.
see him again.
The caption says 10 minutes. She
No.
picks up the phone, and in 10 minutes, she's in a helicopter.
There is no way. There's no way.
It'd take her more than 10 minutes to get up to, unless that LexCorp building with the helipad is if she's literally standing right outside, maybe she jumps on an express elevator and she's at the top.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
If she is at the LexCorp building, why did she even make a phone call? Why didn't she just go in and call in her favor in person? Yeah. So
we already know that John Byrne has a weird concept of time just based on the fact that it appears that Clark left before the school year was over in that last issue, but
it was never addressed.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're moving on. We've got a young lady dressed in. Yeah. I would have almost put this maybe in the 90s, looking at the way she's dressed, the early 90s.
Oh no, that's punker. That's 80s punk.
That's
right
80s.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's walking with a boombox on her shoulder. I never really saw people walking with it on their shoulder like that. Did you?
I had a boombox that was maybe 2-3 times bigger than that, but no, I never carried it on my shoulder.
On the shoulder, yeah. No. So, but she's listening to it.
I think the guy in Do the Right Thing, because there's one character in that movie that spends the entire movie carrying a big boombox around, and I feel like at one point he might have it on his shoulder.
Had it on his shoulder? Okay.
In real life, no, I've never seen that happen in real life.
In real life, I haven't either. I saw people carrying them. I saw people carrying them and set them down somewhere, but I never saw them walking around with it. Yeah. And she's walking around with it so she can hear it because the speakers are facing her. They're not facing out. Yep. So it's, so she gets,
that is the 80s version of an iPhone with AirPods in.
Oh, yes. Okay. Not shoplifted, pickpocketed or whatever. A dude runs by and he grabs the purse off of her. He goes running down. Here we see some pretty standard Superman kind of stuff. I like the way that it was handled. He's running away from her. And he's worried about her, running after her. So he's watching back over his shoulder to see if he's being pursued. Well, we see some red feet. Of course, the feet are connected, but we see the feet. Yeah, Superman just throwing his feet at him. The super detachable man would be as he's landing in front of the guy that's running. So what's going to happen. Both of these panels are on the same page as Superman is dropping. And then the dude turns. Unfortunately, Byrne didn't have him run into him. He sees him, and I presume that he stops. Next page, he has been stopped by something, so he turns to run away in the other direction, but immediately Superman is on that side of him. So you see that Superman has fallen in front of him from flying, and now he's doing his super speed thing to cut him off whichever way he's going. And at that point, Superman talks to him, grabs him up, grabs the purse, and apparently he saw what happened. I guess he was close enough, paying enough attention that he knows where the purse goes. He takes the thief and the purse back to the girl, gives the purse to the girl. Here's a report on her boombox that Clancy's liquor store is being held up by 4 armed gunmen, and they have hostages. So Superman decides, okay, I've done what I can do here. I need to be there. And he takes the pickpocket and shoves him in this may be something that we really don't see too much around anymore either. A big trash can that used to be on every corner so that you could put your trash in it instead of throwing it down in the gutter. Shoves him down into that and then somehow hangs that up on a light pole with the idea that the girl will call the police, file a report, and there is the perp right there in the trash can hanging on the light post.
What's he hanging from?
I tried to figure that out, and I couldn't tell what's going on there.
It's like he just lifts him up, and he's just suddenly hanging. I mean, obviously there's something sticking out of the pole, but I don't. I can't figure out how that trash can is hanging off of that
No. He didn't put it through the trash can or anything. He just holds the trash can up to it. Almost like there's a handle on the trash can and he hooked it, but there's not. They're not made that way. So, I think we're being too picky. Byrne didn't put that much thought into it. He's like, no. I'll put this here and we'll go. Superman does some little cutie Superman stuff here with her and then says bye. And I like the effortlessness of him flying away. Yeah. He just levitates.
He's saluting her as he does.
And I say that because so far the majority of my experience with Superman has been the Golden Age, which he has to put a lot of effort into getting into the air so far in the Golden Age. Here, he's just like, he doesn't even say anything. You see nothing about him. He just levitates to go. So I like that. Kind of like the closest I can think is like Neo in, because Neo jumps in the Matrix. Yep. So, yeah.
It's very, you can tell that Byrne got a lot, he was influenced quite heavily from the Donner Superman film. Because I can totally, I don't know the exact scene off the top of my head, but I can picture Christopher Reeve just kind of floating up like that as well in a scene as Superman where he's just, he just rises into the air and then flies off. And this, when I said that this issue is the issue that made me fall in love with Superman, if I could pinpoint it to one scene, it would be this scene.
Okay.
Because this is the Superman I love. He's not fighting aliens. He's stopping a purse snatcher, and he not only stops the purse snatcher. First, he has to tell the purse snatcher, "You don't really want to steal that young woman's purse, do you? She doesn't look as if she has much more money to spare than you do." And he has to give a little lesson. And not only does he give a little lesson to the bad guy, he does the same thing to her when he just, with his pinky, reaches out and turns the volume of her boombox down.
Right. That's up a little loud. That's
just, he's not quite a dick about it, but he is kind of like, it's, noise pollution is a thing, it's, I would love to have him around when I hear people listening to their phone really loud in a public place, just have Superman come up and go, "Excuse me, but that's kind of loud," And plus, he's a big dude. I don't think a lot of times you see Superman interacting with other superheroes, and superheroes are always drawn to be pretty big. But I'm assuming this purse snatcher is not your average height, but still, Superman towers over this guy. He is a big slab of beef, and he's not like, it's not overdone. I don't get an Arnold Schwarzenegger type of vibe from his build, but he's just a big, imposing dude.
And it is more than a Christopher Reeves.
Yes.
It's more like to my mind, it's more like a Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
As far as stature. I thought whether it was him or it was CGI or whatever they put him in, Henry Cavill's stature was pretty solid for what I would imagine Superman. He's not huge, but he's not, he could be a itty bitty scrawny kind of guy because it doesn't matter really. Yeah. His powers have nothing to do with his physique. So you could have had just a scrawny Superman, but that's not very heroic.
No.
He's trim. He's big, what you would describe as big, but like you said, he's not like WWE professional wrestler big. He's not like that. There's no need for that either. So it's just good, solid stature physique. I think Henry Cavill. I always thought that Christopher Reeve was kind of a smaller Superman. He wasn't as physically imposing, which would allow you to write Superman a whole nother way in that, well, here is unassuming Clark Kent all the way. Everything about Clark Kent is unassuming. And so Christopher Reeve was a good fit for that, I thought.
Yeah, this Superman is a very, very broad-shouldered. I think people might refer to him as a tall drink of water. And I've seen images of Christopher Reeve, on set without his shirt on, filming Superman, and he's very cut. He's very defined. He's very muscular, but he's not. Yeah, he doesn't. He's not as broad.
Yeah, he's not a big man
Yeah.
as a man, as a human. He just was not big.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and say this just because I really want to make some people angry, but there is nothing about the Christopher Reeve portrayal of Superman that really stuck with me. I didn't think, all
right,
these
folks,
people, oh,
that's all we got
he's
for
my
today.
Superman. And I'm like, no, there have been better Superman. Henry Cavill, I thought, did the best in my memory of being Superman. I liked his portrayal better than anybody's.
I have fond memories of the Richard Donner Superman. It has been a number of years since I've seen it. It's of course the first time I saw Superman on film, but it doesn't hold that kind of mystic quality that like Star Wars does for me.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, and if I did piss you off, it's Teal Productions on Twitter. You can at me all day long.
Yeah. The address to complain to is.
Yes. All right, next up we go to the liquor store, Clancy's liquor store, where they sell wines and beers. Both plural.
And beers.
Yeah, so you can get it all there.
Is that maybe that's it? There's no
okay.
Yeah, it's either wine or beer. If you're looking for vodka, this is not the place for you.
Not Clancy's. That's
not Clancy's.
3 blocks down. It's not.
They specialize in wine and beer, and that's it.
That's it. SWAT team out front here. One of them is on the bullhorn, and it is, he says who he is. Captain Regan. Reagan? Maybe that's pronounced Reagan. Captain Reagan of the Special Weapons and Tactics Squad. That's SWAT, right? SWT? Yeah, so it is the SWAT. I saw it on the patch here. And so he's talking to the bad guy with the megaphone there and telling him, and the bad guy's like, yeah, stick it up your arse. I ain't doing nothing. And Reagan's like, huh? Well, I guess, basically it's like, okay, you need to say, oh, well, okay, I guess that's not going to work. So we're just going to have to storm in and, a couple casualties maybe with the civilians. And, they're having that acceptable losses conversation after, as far as we know, one attempt to talk them down.
You get the feeling that they just rolled up. He grabbed the bullhorn. All right, everybody. I'm Captain Reagan, because he does mention he was kind of hoping his reputation would scare him. But so, and here's the thing. I don't believe Captain Reagan shows up again in this miniseries. And I don't remember if he shows up after that. I would assume that he does, just because of this scene, because you immediately you get the feeling that the police here are not corrupt, but they're not the good guys. The police are not the good guys here in this scene, because, or at least this SWAT team are not the good guys. And because he obviously has this reputation that he's hoping would scare these criminals out of there, so they wouldn't have to lift much of a finger. But when that doesn't happen, it's all about, all right, we're going to have to get in there and we're going to have to storm the building. Some civilians are going to die, and we're okay with that. And so you get the feeling that this is the way Metropolis has been run up to this point. And that's when Superman shows up.
Also want to mention that, to my eye, Byrne does pretty well with the standard weaponry here that we're seeing. It seems contemporary. It doesn't seem like he went anything futuristic or anything. I can sort of recognize, I think, what they're supposed to be, but then I'm no handheld weapons expert. So this is a scene where Superman shows up, and he shows up in two things strike me. It's a very unassuming way that he does this. He didn't have to, being who and what he is, do it in this method, but this is what he chose to do. And the other thing I was going to mention just completely escaped my mind. So whatever. But if you envision the scene, right, you've got the liquor store, you've got some amount of space, and then you've got the cordon for the SWAT team. And then you've got the public or whatever else behind that, right? So Superman approaches from the public side to the cordon to get permission, in essence, of the authorities to intercede. Now, Superman could have just landed over there at the front door if he'd wanted to and just done what he is going to do anyways. He could have done it that way, but he's following the chain of command to a point. I mean, he is following chain of command, but he's not really respecting chain of command. And if they said no, put a hand on his chest or whatever, nothing's going to stop him. Superman's already made up his mind what he's going to do, and basically he's asking, telling permission kind of situation here. So it's like, it looks like he's asking permission, but he's not, because he's going to do what he's going to do. He's already made up his mind how he's going to handle it, and, that's what it is.
Yeah, he's telling them how this is going to go down. He's just doing it very politely. Right. And because he doesn't just land there between the cops and the liquor store, you almost feel like he was just kind of hanging. He was hanging back just to see how the cops would what they would do.
What would happen? Giving them their chance.
Yeah, he gave them a chance. They're not going to, they're obviously, however they're going to handle it is going to kill people. And he's like, nah, that's not going to work. But even then, he just casually strolls up and is like, I'll handle this, guys. Please get back. And, they make a very slight attempt, to stop him. And all that is just them saying, no, don't,
Right. So they can say, attempted to stop subject. It's one of those cases where you're doing it to be able to say you did it, not doing it seriously.
Yeah.
Which in my real life, I note people doing that all the time. Well, they just did that to say that they did. They weren't trying.
Because you would think that a SWAT team, regardless of the fact that we know they're not going to stop him from going in there.
Well, yeah.
But you would think, they don't know that. They don't know that they can't stop him, but they give, they put out very little effort to try to keep him back. And you get the kind of feeling that they're just kind of like, no, don't go in there. Oh, well, there's another casualty.
The Superman Super Show will return after these messages.
And now back to the Superman Super Show.
They seem surprised by him also.
Yes.
So they don't, I guess they don't know Superman yet in Metropolis. He's still the rumor, like all of the thugs in the Golden Age. He's been around for 3 or 4 years of comic book time, and we still run into people who don't. And it's like, how do you know? How has word not gotten out that this dude exists? Yeah. So, and basically what he's doing is he's warning them that there are going to be bullets flying, and I can't control where they're going. And of course, there's only one reason why bullets would fly around and Superman can't control them, if you know Superman. So in my mind, I already got a vision of somehow how this was going to go, or what Superman was going to do to impress these thugs with the fact that he is superior to them.
Yeah.
But he approaches them, arms out, rather Messiah-ish, if I may say. Made a joke about, well, I can't possibly be hiding any weaponry in my outfit, which is, we found out last issue, is skin tight for a reason. Or we didn't find out, or did they mention the reason that it needed to be skin tight? Yeah, they did. Okay.
Yeah. He could have a freaking handgun tucked in the back of that belt behind his back. Come on.
In the back, yeah. Or do the
Die Hard
sword on the back, the shit thing there, and you wouldn't know. But or John, what's his face in the Die Hard movies?
Die Hard, John McClane,
Yeah, tapes the pistol to his back there in the first movie, the Yakatomi Plaza. That is a Christmas movie. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So he's walking up to the dude holding a automatic, semi-automatic. That's probably automatic. That looks like it's supposed to be an Uzi or a mini Uzi.
Yeah, or an Ingram, I think they were called.
Okay. Walking up to dude holding the stop. Superman walking up to, I said stop. Finally, Superman gets close enough that he just reaches out and he pinches the barrel shut with a crimp. Which,
Yep. Crimp.
It worked for me. That's the sound a barrel would make if you hit it with,
And
crimp.
the guy's reaction is, hey!
Yeah, really. But now his three companions, one of which is one of the more androgynous females I think I have seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
They're all armed with, not all automatic. Looks like 2 are automatics and 1 is a shotgun of some sort.
Yeah.
But they see what's going on and they start firing on Superman, standard Earth ammunition, gunpowder ammunition. We see the bullets bouncing off of him, which is why he warned the police off. In my mind, this scene was going to happen.
Yep.
He wanted them to know without telling them that, hey, you need to make sure your men are back when I go in, because this scene right here, these things, which is interesting because these things are bouncing off of him. They could bounce into the hostages just as easily.
Yeah.
I know that the ricochet would have to be a pretty severe angle, but there's nothing in my mind that says that it couldn't happen mathematically. It's a possibility. But instead, of course, these are all ricocheting wide. So that means that even though they're bouncing back, they're bouncing up or down. Or nothing at a very acute angle back where they're coming from or near to that. Then the final panel on the page is a close-up of his eyes that are turning red. Well, why are Superman's eyes turning red? Well, that is because he's using one of his powers. The thugs in front of him, if I can say thugs, he heats the metal of the guns up and they all drop the weapons yelling hot to let you know. The weapons are already reddish. They're already bursting into flames. But to be sure as the reader that you understand what's happening, they all scream in red letters, hot. So, I mean, everything about that panel tells you that he has used his eyes somehow, if you don't know anything about Superman, to raise the temperature of the metal for those weapons, and they became too hot to hold.
How do you feel about the way they portray his heat vision here? Rather than, because, in some cases you'll see actual like red laser beams coming out of his eyes.
Well, my presumption is that he is doing this by emission of microwaves. And if he's using microwaves are invisible to the naked eye. So there's not going to be any visible trace. Now, laser light amplified through the stimulated emission of radiation, I think, laser, is visible. So if you presume that his heat vision is via laser radiation, laser energy, then that would be visible. But if he is able to affect the radiation wavelengths and he emits microwaves from his eyes, they're not visible. Yeah.
I'm kind of torn. I've always liked the look of the red beams coming out of his eyes, but at the same time, they're, I because I think when I had read this, of course, any Superman I had seen up to that point would have been either the movie or Super Friends. And I feel like the Super Friends were actually red beams that came out of his eyes. But on the one hand, I want to see the red beams, but on the other hand, I like the fact that he just looks at something, his eyes glow red, and then whatever microwave or whatever, it's invisible to the naked eye, and I like that.
Makes him more mysterious, more. I can't figure out what he did because he just looked and they reacted this way. Whereas if there were beams, you would say that, well, he shot something out of his eyes that did this. But if you're watching, it's like, I don't know what he did. He looked at them and they dropped their guns. So
Yeah, the one guy does mention his eyes. What's happening to his eyes? But yeah, as far as anybody watching would just, what the hell just happened?
A witness. They'd have a hard time explaining to the police what happened. He just saying what they saw.
He just looked at their guns and they dropped fire.
Them. He gives them all what he calls a softest tap. I was going to say a double tap, but he uses both hands. But he knocks them out for an hour. So I think that's a pretty stout tap. Goes up to the last one who's got some kind of Abby Hoffman 70s counterculture look going on here, I think. This is where we find out it's a female. They say you'd never hit a lady, would you? And he takes off the glasses and he plinks her with his finger. And that's the sound, too. Yep. The sound of Superman knocking someone out, flicking them with one finger is P-L-I-N-K. Plink.
Yep.
So that's, and knocks her out. And he did that. He was more aggressive with the other two, not because they were men, which is what you might think, and this is the lady, but because she had dynamite that was set to go under her coat somewhere. That was she could trigger it if I guess if ultimately they lost and they were going to be taken by the police, she could get one last pound of flesh by setting off probably 3, 5, or 6 sticks of dynamite here, it looks like. Yep. Superman knocked her out, got the dynamite, disarmed it, and then takes off. My job here is done, and he jets off just like, in a way, just like he did with the purse thief, although that he left because something more demanding was happening. Yeah. So now, lest you forget about the fact that Lois is eye in the sky looking for Superman, she and the helicopter pilot here turn up in the Luthor copter, see the cops. Now, though, well, no, I guess it's possible that this van was already there because that's usually how SWAT brings in equipment and things like that. So the law enforcement response is still here. Not much by way of public watching. I noticed there's not a big group of public here. It just seems to be law enforcement. But they heard the report on the radio also, so they headed. Which, interestingly enough, I would take it to mean that they headed here at the same time Superman did, because the report there's one report, right? Yep. So they both heard it. So Superman heard it, talked to the officers, went inside, took care of everything, took off, and Lois is just now showing up. So that's only got to be a couple minutes, if that, in between the responses. So that's all it took Superman to do this. Yeah. So Lois is saying, hey, just, hover somewhere, basically, and I'll jump out, because she knows he can't land on the street there. Landing up on top of the one of the buildings is too far away, that it'll take too long for her to get all the way down to street level. So she's like, just hover somewhere where I can hop out, and then I'll get to where I need to be, which is over here where the police cars are and everything. So actually, he does end up letting her off on top of one of the buildings. As she's running through the building, we see reinforcement that Metropolis maybe isn't the nice, shiny emerald city that it later gets portrayed to be. She's running down through a tenement, I guess maybe is what we're led to believe, to get down to street level. Talks to one of the officers down there and finds out you missed him, which goes on for, what is this, for a whole page. The whole next page is 4 panels of situations. A fire, a robbery at maybe a bank, it looks like, a subway accident of some sort, and then a robbery of a bank car, something like that.
Yeah, armored car.
All she's missing. Now, these are not all the same day as she's tracking Superman. These are probably spread out each a different day, because each time we see Lois, she has on a different outfit. So John Byrne went to the trouble of drawing her in different outfits for each of these 4 panels.
Yeah, I have to imagine that when it comes to Lois Lane in this series, John Byrne had a stack of fashion magazines near his drawing table. Not of the 4 outfits she's wearing here, I think the one that she's wearing at the subway crash is my favorite. Not a big fan of the other 3. The first one, the almost like a leather flight jacket. It reminds me of Dakota North.
Yes,
a bit.
And boots.
Yeah, but yeah, the big overcoat with the big boots and the white fluffy hat. That's so 80s.
I like the next one because it reminds me of the question that we have right now. Who is a female?
Yeah. But my favorite outfit that she's wearing is the one she's wearing on the very next page.
Okay.
That is super 80s.
She's back at the at her office at the Daily Planet. Is that what they've told us it was?
Yep.
Jimmy Olsen comes in. So we have the introduction of Perry White, Clark Kent, of course, Lois Lane. We have the introduction of Jimmy in this new Superman world.
This is I was trying to look up to see if there was any trivia about this issue, to see if, for example, that address of 1187, if that meant anything. I didn't see anything while you were talking about it, but I did read that this is not the first post-crisis appearance of Lex Luthor. He actually first appeared in Swamp Thing number 52 before this one.
Okay.
But this would be his second, I guess, post-crisis. But this is Jimmy Olsen and Perry White's first post-crisis appearance.
That makes me curious as to why they would use Lex Luthor in Swamp Thing.
I don't know, it's weird. Jimmy is this is here. Okay, so this is what I love about John Byrne's run, because he makes this extra effort to not only dress Lois in the fashion of the time, but really just, I mean, it looks like she spends a decent amount of money on her wardrobe. She's got some pretty, I don't want to say elaborate, but they're very 80s. It's like I said, he makes a concentrated effort to make Lois not only wearing the fashion of the time, but being very fashionable. And then yet Jimmy Olsen is got a sweater vest on and a bow tie. And he keeps Jimmy Olsen as just like a super nerd. I mean, they've kind of changed that. Modern day Jimmy is more of a hipster, but yeah, back then, I don't know how old he's supposed to be at this point. 13. He's probably breaking child labor laws, because he doesn't look any older than 13 or 14 years old. But
if he's working at the paper, he better be.
Yeah, I'm assuming his parents dressed him. You wear a suit, you wear a bow tie, you look nice at your paper job.
So Lois here on this whole page basically is just bemoaning the fact that she's been trying to get an interview with Superman and has not, as she's reviewing, are those other papers or? Yeah, other papers, stories about this character who they are calling Superman, because the first time she referred to him in their paper was Superman as well.
Okay, we have a William. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name, dude. I don't want to mess it up, but he's pointing out to us that Lois's trash can and has Charlie Brown and Snoopy on it. I never noticed that before. That's another thing. Last time.
Oh, okay. Now
last time I saw something that I had never noticed before, and yeah, I never noticed that before either. How many times I've read these books. Thank you, William.
So would that be an Easter egg there?
Yeah, it makes me think of the Todd McFarlane story, how he talked to a guy that didn't read any of his comics. And the only comic that he read was Felix the Cat. And he said, if you had Felix the Cat in your comics, I'd read it. And so he made a point to put Felix the Cat somewhere in every story.
Yeah, I have read that. I don't think I've seen Felix the Cat in every story, though.
Yeah, probably not.
I like the final panel here. I like this image of Lois as she's gotten kind of a sneaky idea to help her out with something. I like that. Next page is again, a third page panel of something that the artist apparently likes to draw, because it's a nice big picture of Superman flying, cape aflutter, but just a lot of real estate for this one image. And to me, that just signifies that it's something that the artist enjoys. And in a situation where the writer and the artist are one and the same individual, they can do stuff like this anytime they want, because they're laying it all out. So, yeah.
So real quick, I just want to interrupt real quick, because I just thought of something. William, who pointed out the Peanuts trash can, I just got to ask, William, are you Bill from Long Island on Blue Sky? Yep. Haha. He was typing that because of the delay. He was typing as I was asking.
Okay.
Bill from Long Island will work. All right. Cool.
All right. So, pardon me a minute while I consume.
Okay. I'll join you.
Here's to Brother Ed. No,
Here's to good times. Tonight is kind of special.
All right. So Superman is flying around and he stops. He sees a situation over in the bay, we'll call it. But he is not standing on the dock of the bay. He is, and he's not wasting time. He's up flying on patrol. So what?
Your music puns. I love them.
Musical references, man.
Should start being like a bingo card for the show. Ed made a musical pun.
Only by artist, not by song, because there's too many songs. So you got an artist bingo card.
Well,
and
just
it's like, okay,
Ed makes a musical pun. Boom. Bingo.
He sees Lois. What we see is what he's seeing. He's using his X-ray vision with no great song. Thanks, Billy. With no beamy or anything, because he's using his telescopic vision, and a lot of times it doesn't have because it's not an outward projection, so there's no energy going out. So he sees somebody, and I believe this may even be an outfit we have seen her wearing before. It's bluish.
It's the same thing she was wearing in the previous scene. It's the same day.
Okay. In a car, you would presume. Well, I guess you can see it here at the bottom of his vision that the car has fallen into the water, and someone, no, he does recognize her as Lois Lane, is trapped in the car. So he has seen that the car has fallen into the bay and is sinking with Lois in it.
Of course, he recognizes her. He loves her.
I don't know
about that.
Talked about that
in
yet.
the last issue, that there was something about her.
Yeah, but I don't think. I don't think it's that strong. I think Lex Luthor loves her, but we haven't been told that yet.
I think Lex Luthor thinks he loves her.
Okay, all right. So Superman goes zipping here. He says to himself, Lex import. So apparently she decided to go off the docks into the bay and potentially killing herself on Lex property. When at the very beginning, she thought enough of him to just blow him off. Now she is using every bit of his...
or Lex owns so much property in Metropolis
that's one way to look at it. But I prefer to look at it as the fact that she is just continually taking advantage of whatever this relationship is.
Yeah.
So Superman dives in, finds the car. Looks like it's already settled on the bottom of the bay.
Yep.
And he grabs the car up. She's about, the waters. You got to know how bad it is for her. So you see her with her, and of course everybody on the podcast can see this too. Podcast being a visual medium. The water is at her chin, and she's lifting, pointing up to the roof. The last gasp of breath as the water's about to fill the cabin, and Superman scoops up the car and raises the car out. Nice panel here as he's raising it. Byrne did decide to show that the water was coming out of the car, which it's like if he saved her and the water didn't leave, it would be kind of a moot point.
She still drowns.
Yeah. So he does show that the water leaves the car as Superman raises it up, sets it down. She gets out of the car. She's trashed. Thank you. Oh, no problem. Here, as a matter of fact, let me take you somewhere where you can get your clothes dry. You can change. Let me take you home. And she's like, oh, well, you know where I live? Well, yeah, of course. I know where everyone, which is kind of spooky. I know where everyone lives in Metropolis.
That is the creepiest line.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was meant to evoke like Santa Claus type. Oh, he knows where everybody lives. He's Superman. No, I think had I been Lois Lane at that point, I would have been like, just drop me off here.
Yeah, just put me over here. Right?
I don't want to be alone with you in my apartment.
Yeah. So now my question is, in him flying her to her house, wouldn't that dry her out anyways?
You'd think.
Without her having to change. It depends on the journey and how fast they go. I mean, all kinds of, but that's what occurred to me. I'm like, well, if you're going to fly her, that'll dry her out. She'll be okay when she gets there. So they land, go inside. He does his good deed and he's about to take off, but she trips out at him here. She loses her words and then just screams, come back here in a, middle junior high-ish girl kind of pose here. I thought it was very immature for the supreme maturity that she has been showing as a character up to this point. So it's a I thought it was meant to evoke how Superman makes her feel.
Yeah.
Because she loses her wording here, and then she's just a little girl, just something in the next and so it's, and then of course the follow-up panel is just her face and his face with you can kind of envision Superman's face coming into the panel, and he says yes, as if just all a cutesy kind of innocent lovey-dovey rom-com scene here.
Yeah, you get the feeling that it's part, that there's just something about this guy that makes her not herself. I think Lois is kind of used to being in control and used to getting her way through
around Superman,
just being brash and in your face, and Superman's just, well, I've got to go, and
And she feels comfortable enough around Superman to have him sit in her parlor, go take a shower, and then come back out in just a robe and a towel on her head.
Yeah.
That is my personal experience. That is a definite change in relationship when someone that you have an interest in. Now, if it's your buddy, male or female, you don't even think about stuff like this. Let me go shower and I'll, but different gender and a individual that you have more than a passing interest in, this is a step in the relationship from my experience. And Lois is just like basically the first time they've ever been in the same place, right? She's been chasing him, and this is...
Yeah, I don't know if that speaks to the lengths. Well, obviously the fact that she would would drive her car into the river.
Well, that's,
speaks to the lengths that she will go to get a story. But then when you combine it with the fact that he says that line, I know where everyone lives, she still allows him to take her home. And then, has him hang out while she strips down naked, takes a shower, and comes out in just a robe.
Right. Comes out naked, essentially. I mean,
But I love just Superman just sitting on the couch, just kick back, arm on the back of the couch, legs crossed. He looks so at home and comfortable, and
he's chilled the F out. Is what while he's waiting for. He's like, okay, might as well wait.
And I like that Lois has a cat.
A cat. And Lois is a fan of brie and wine.
Yes. She probably got the wine from Calvin's.
Clancy's.
Yeah, Clancy's, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She stopped. They probably have a going out of business sale or a moving stock sale right now. So she hit them up the other day. Yeah.
Yep.
Stocked back up. I don't know where she would get the brie. But, and Superman says, well, he doesn't drink because he's on duty is the implication, but that's not what he says. But he also says he's never acquired the taste for brie, which I agree. I don't like brie. I don't like
Brie's
any of the blue moldy cheeses. I don't like any of them.
If it's a good soft, creamy brie, it's pretty good.
No. I don't know unless you pick up something here. There's just some banter, which everybody who listens to the show is familiar with.
Yeah.
Nothing, until the end of the conversation. That's where he lets her know that, well, actually, I knew what you were doing. I saw that you had backup. You had equipment in the car to help you if I didn't get there in time. And then as he's leaving, he's thinking, wow, what a chance. Because if I had been, halfway around the world, she didn't have any people backing her up, and the equipment that she had may not have lasted long. So I may not have been able to get there in time. She was willing to take that chance. It's like...
Yeah, I like that. It's new enough in his career that he hasn't really fully put his powers to the test. He doesn't know, he could have been on the other side of the world. He doesn't know if he would have heard her from that far away. Right. And he doesn't know that even if he did, if he could have made it to her in time. So I like that he's new enough that he hasn't quite fully figured out the limits of his powers. But we also get the name Superman is, I think, officially established in this scene because she asks him for his name and he says, well, what? We'll just use the one that you've already given me.
Right. Which didn't his ma and Pa Kent give him that name?
Yeah.
When she sewed the S on his...
Yeah, because that's why they chose the S. And as the last panel and the last issue was him flying out of the house and he calls himself Superman. So
Yeah, so I mean, it might be, to me, that's a little incongruous in that he already had given himself the name, but
Well, the article had already come out at that point that referred to him as Superman from him saving the space plane. Yeah.
Okay. Even before the outfit. Okay, so she sewed the S in light of the fact that he had been called a Superman. And okay.
Yeah, so
that all makes sense. Okay.
I guess this then just reinforces the fact that Lois is the one that named him Superman.
The official,
So,
Superman goes now to carry on his Clark Kent life, lands, changes without a telephone booth, for those of you out there who were part of the earlier diatribe that I went into about phone booths. But he does change into a rather smart British 20s automobile driving kind of outfit. That's what I see is one of those dudes, right?
You
in
can
the,
see
in
him
the
in a
old
Model
Ts. Yeah, that's what he looks like here. So Clark Kent, the epitome of 80s, mid 80s male style. He's knocking it out here. He's got the
and he's just left his, he's got a stack of clothes. His change of clothes is just folded nicely.
Oh yeah, you're right. On some machinery over here on the roof of the Daily Planet, because there's the symbol behind him.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man, I guess he seeds things around the city in case he ever needs it.
Yeah.
But he's got an English touring cap on. He's got his glasses, leather gloves. He's got an overcoat and a red Scooby-Doo ascot on there.
Yep.
So to me, he very much looks like one of these dudes sitting in a Model T in a black and white photo, steering it down the road. That's how he looks there.
These days, we'd refer to him as a hipster.
Okay. Yes. Back inside the offices, 2 hours later. So Clark has been here most of those 2 hours already down in the offices, because Lois comes rushing in, has got the story, going to turn it over to Perry, trying to give Perry the story. But Perry's like, no, we don't need the story. Sorry, you got scooped. See, here's the paper that I'm going to run. Here's the headline or the byline. And it's got the explosive story on Superman as the byline. And he says, someone's already scooped you, turned it in. What? Oh, don't worry, Lois. These kind of things happen even to the greatest, back and forth. And then finally he introduces the scooper, if we were. And it's funny, I say scooper and you have a cat. And we all know what kind of scooping goes with cats.
That's right. I can't see anything right now.
I do it right back over here, as a matter of fact. The scooper is Mr. Clark Kent with, to me, looks like slicked back hair he's got too. Sitting at a office here, presumably typewriting. He's got both of his hands up in the international symbol of typewriting, right? Isn't that what this is? The international sign language. And so we find out, which, as I said, I think earlier in the recording, that in the Golden Age stories, this is a very common thing. Didn't start out that way, but it has got to be the joke. Ha ha ha, scooped again. Clark Kent always scooping Lois on the Superman-related stories. Here, right off the bat, she gets scooped. She's written about him, as far as rumors and stuff like that. But the big expose or the big in-depth article, she got scooped on because, of course, Clark, knowing Superman, wink, wink, was able to get that story, turn it in, and so there we go. Wah, wah, at the end of the story here for Lois.
The Superman Super Show will return after these messages.
And now, back to the Superman Super Show.
Yeah, and, I've always liked that it's basically he used the fact that he's Superman to get himself a job at the Daily Planet. He wouldn't have gotten the job without that story. We don't know at this point if he has any kind of college education, because it appears that he left before the school year was even over, his high school. So we don't even know if he graduated high school, frankly. But, and my memory is super bad. But isn't I know that in Action Comics, the first Superman story, he's already working at the Daily Planet. But wasn't it Superman issue 1 that they told the story that he gets a story about Superman, and that's how he gets his job at the Daily Planet?
I thought so. That sounds familiar.
So, yeah. Okay. I thought it was. So, one of those things that, again, I wouldn't have known, except for the last couple of years, that's kind of a callback to the Golden Age that, you wouldn't think, Superman's not the kind of guy that would cash in on the fact that he's Superman to improve his life, but obviously he does, because he wouldn't have gotten that job without it. Bill from Long Island says the panel of Lois walking with purpose has to be one of the most great Byrne poses. Yeah. Plus, it's another outfit that I really like her. Is one of those 80s outfits.
Having said that, is there a main female character that John Byrne has drawn that has not used this pose?
Oh, probably not.
I can think X-Men and I can think Fantastic Four, both, that I've seen this pose. I believe I remember a Misty Knight Iron Fist pose like this. So that would be interesting for Kitty in X-Men. I mean, you think of the older X-women, but Kitty, I remember seeing in this pose. And I just wonder if there has been a female character that is any significance to the story that Byrne didn't write power walking like this. The purpose walk, showing at this particular moment, if none other, that she is a strong female because she's going to do something.
She walks with purpose.
Yeah. So good point. I saw this and it did jog my brain that, I've seen that pose before for John Byrne, and William brought it up there in chat.
And when you think about the fact that, she's as Bill put, she's walking with purpose. But Jimmy is there saying, "Did you hear? The chief just hired," and she brushes him off. Later, Jim, I got big fish to fry. And if she would have just taken a moment to listen to what he had to say, she would have saved herself some embarrassment.
Well, but she had a purpose. She was not going to be deterred from that purpose. She was very goal oriented.
Yep. And so
that's we are told one night in Gotham City in 2 weeks. I don't know if that's just a teaser or if that's the title of the story. I haven't looked ahead but we all know when you say Gotham City, who that involves in DC Comics. So I suppose that this is the setup for the first meeting, post-crisis or modern age or whatever you want to call it, in Namor. Okay.
Bill from...
One night. I believe the in Namor was in reference to my Misty Knight.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I know she was in Namor also. So... Okay,
yeah,
so we'll get to see John Byrne draw Batman, too. That'll be cool.
Yeah, issue 3, the title of it is One Night in Gotham City.
Okay.
It is the first appearance of the post-crisis meeting between Superman and Batman. And I think we talked in the last episode about the Superman from Kingdom Come, how he's got kind of this righteous...
Right.
This is the way you have to be a superhero. I'm the only one who knows how to do it right. It kind of starts in issue 3, that attitude of his. He comes off as kind of a dick in issue 3.
Which is interesting. In the movies, it's reversed. It's Batman that takes on that attitude. I know, and if you just listen to me, I know. And so they kind of reversed it there.
It's the whole, it's the theme. If you've ever watched the show 24, with Kiefer Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
That show, the theme of that show can be broken down into one central idea, and that's if people would just listen to Jack Bauer and let him do his thing, the show would be called One, because he'd have it all done in an hour.
Right. It wouldn't need 24.
That's right. So, all right. Do you have a favorite moment, scene, or panel from this issue?
Favorite panel, I'll go just because of, I don't know, it just struck me. The outfit that Clark puts on the roof before he goes down for his interview. That just, I hee-hawed because immediately the Model T driver is what popped into my head when I saw that outfit.
See,
so
that's funny because that didn't pop into my first thought. Reading it now, I don't know what I recall thinking about it back in '86, but reading it now over the last couple of years, my first thought is he looks kind of like a douche. But once you point out Model T, I can't get that image. That's totally what it looks like. It's totally, if the next page, because that's the final panel on that particular page.
Right.
So if you turn the page and he was behind the wheel of a Model T,
fine.
It wouldn't seem out of place at all. Just motoring down, the main strip in Metropolis, heading toward the Daily Planet.
No doubt.
Pop, 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 little puffs of smoke coming out of the back of the tailpipe.
Yep.
And,
probably my favorite scene is where he encountered the purse thief. I like the way that was handled with the coming down before he sees dude turning. Oh, there's something here. Let me turn this way to get away. Nope, Superman's over there. And, that it was all very... Byrne is not taking any time, really, to set up what Superman can do.
Yeah.
You just catch up on the fact that these are things that he can do because Byrne is showing us. Again, most of my experience with Superman has been Golden Age, and it's still a building process. But here, Byrne is assuming we know Superman, and he's just using the abilities that Superman has in the story. And I can appreciate that. Every story, even if it's a starting point, doesn't have to go all the way back to the beginning, every time and rehashing that. No, how about this? And then as you read, you just catch up. There's nothing wrong for me with that kind of experience rather than you don't know. So here, let me hold your hand and take you to the beginning and walk you through. It's like, no, you don't have to do that every time.
Yeah. And on the one hand, it's like Byrne, I think, kind of knows that a lot of people getting into this book at the time, they're even in '86, Superman is a universally known character.
Whether you're Superman.
Whether you're a comic book reader or not, who Superman is, you have a general idea of what his powers are. And so he doesn't have to do a lot of explaining. At the same time, if you did literally get into this book knowing nothing at all about Superman, it's still the perfect way to introduce the character and his powers just by showing that he can do them and not, like you say, he could have spent time going, the heat vision is microwave energy and blah, 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 blah. It's you pick up pretty quick what he's doing and you just, it's because he's an alien and he has these powers.
Right. And if that's all you know, for me, if that's all I know, that's fine. It's a comic book. It is, I'm sorry, anybody listening, it is pretend. And if that's where my pretending starts, then that's where it starts. I don't have to have everything absolutely filled in. Case in point, for the entire extent of my comic book experience, I have been an X-Men fan. Wolverine was one of the least known characters ever for a long time, but yet one of the most popular. So I think in trying to explain him, they have messed him up to some extent. So, so I mean, you don't have to. In order to be a compelling character, now there are going to be some readers that want to know everything. Oh, you have to tell, whatever. You're such a small minority that you can just go over there and stand and wait because the rest of us are okay with filling in the pieces as we go. That's part of why you consume the media, is to get those questions answered, not have everything given to you on a platter to begin with and then continue your journey. No, the journey is learning. I'm sorry.
It's the whole trope of, if you ever look at articles or anything where they're giving advice to you want to be a writer, here's some things that you need to do. And one of them is always show, don't tell. And that, the way his powers are being introduced, that's the perfect example.
Oh, that's
showing
absolutely.
you his powers rather than telling you what he can do. That scene is my favorite scene in this issue as well. It really, it's
the scene where he's subduing the person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's our first post-crisis scene of Superman actually doing some superheroing. We saw him for a couple of panels in the previous issue in the suit. We of course saw him save the space plane, but this is the first time we're seeing him as Superman patrolling basically the streets of Metropolis, finding crime. And the fact that he starts, the first time we see Superman being Superman in the post-crisis, the fact that he's stopping a purse snatcher is, I love that. It's not, oh my gosh, aliens are about to invade, but here's Superman to save us. No, he's just, I think it's the one thing that some writers get wrong about Superman quite often is that they feel like he has to always be tackling these big world-ending events. And it's why you've seen articles throughout the years that are like, people don't, hell, it was just a few years back before I think even Man of Steel came out. I would see articles like, the reason we haven't had a good Superman movie since the Donner Superman is because nobody knows what to do with Superman. He's the most difficult character to write because he's the most powerful being in the world. And how do you write that? It's like this, it's
not only that, but have we really gotten into any of that reading the Golden Age stories yet?
No.
We're 3 years or 4 years into his on paper existence. And the big supervillains still are not a thing. I mean, so it's like, they started and they built Superman from there. So it must have been possible to do, or he wouldn't exist now because people wouldn't have hung around, so it's a function of the creator, not the creation.
That's right.
I don't know how to write. Okay, that's fine. Then don't.
Write
and go over here and write this that you do know how to write. That's perfectly fine. But don't sit there and hack your way through the fact that you don't know what to do with this character and eat them up. That to us as the consumer, that's not fair. So I got that assignment and I just didn't know. Well, then why did you take the assignment, dog? I know we need to get paid, but come on. Yeah. Your thinking is better for Aquaman. Do that in the ocean or, whatever. But that is probably one of the cheesiest things I hear creators talk about. And it's, first of all, it's your job to figure that out, right? Because you're a writer. Now, that's not me trying to be mean. You just couldn't wrap your head around it. Okay. Yeah. Then take another assignment. Move on.
Yeah. It's why I don't podcast about science.
I don't know science. Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about it. So,
my favorite panel then of this issue comes from that same scene, and it's the panel of him turning the volume of the boombox down with his pinky.
Oh, yeah, with his pinky. He reached out there.
Yeah, there's so many things that I love about the panel. The look on her face, first of all, the surprise that he would just, the gall of this guy to just reach over and turn the volume down on her boombox.
Okay, now see, you read it like that. I read it like she is still taken by what she just saw happen with him flying back and forth and the dude and shoving him in the thing and lifting him up and she is still caught. And then just to add to that, while she is in that confusion, he's just, taking a minute and reaching out with his pinky and say, here, let's turn this down, So
that's it. And again, it's what endears me to Superman when he is this kind of character. And it has to be done the right way because he can come off as a huge dick in a moment like that. But if it's written correctly, he doesn't. He comes off as a Boy Scout, of course. That's why they call him the Big Blue Boy Scout.
Definitely a Boy Scout.
Not only does he stopped the purse snatcher, he returns her purse, but then and I think that radio is a trifle loud, don't you? After all, in a city this size, consideration for others is the only thing that keeps life bearable.
There you go. That is the key right there.
Yeah. And you almost, you almost can see like those, the more you know
Yeah, it's
things from TV. Yeah. Living and learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite. That's my favorite panel. All right. Anything else you want to say about this issue?
Sitting here talking about it, it has grown on me than when I first sat down here after having read it. So, in retrospect, if that's the right way to put it, I enjoyed. I guess maybe I enjoyed talking about it and maybe picking things out a little bit more than I just did reading cover to cover.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that's happened for me with the Golden Age stories. You know, how many times we've gone into an episode and I'm like, I didn't really care for this story too much. But by the time we're done talking about it, I'm like, this story was actually pretty fun. I actually really quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm going to have to, moving forward, I'm going to have to hold off those maybe final thoughts until after I've had a chance to talk with you about it and see. Could be, I still feel, but they're just being able to find those things that are entertaining, which in just sitting and reading, that's not necessarily, for me, that's not necessarily how I read comics.
Right.
I just read from beginning to end, and the story does whatever the story does, but seldom in my own just personal reading do I then go back to the book and open it up and look for something that stood out and try to figure out why. So that first impression is usually the only impression that I have, except when I talk about it on a podcast, because then I have gone through it a little bit more. And sometimes I'll admit I have read books that I don't enjoy as much after looking through it because I'm like, yeah, I was right. That one didn't work.
That's why we do the first impression at the beginning of the episode and then final impression at the end. Because
this one wasn't bad. I still want to know who the dude was in the end of the first issue, peeping from the barn, watching Superman fly away.
Yep, you will.
I thought you said that was the second issue that would come out, but is it the fourth issue?
No, we don't know who this guy is until Superman #1. So
way down the line. Okay.
Yeah, it's like he puts this mysterious figure in the miniseries. It's just like, look, mysterious figure. I'm not going to address it again in this miniseries. It's just.
Did you see him in this issue anywhere? Did you see anybody watching or doing anything?
No.
I don't remember seeing anything either.
No.
Okay. That's no. I don't really have anything to add beyond what I've said, which for over 2 hours has been said quite a bit.
All right.
So
before I do the ending bit here, I'm gonna give you something to think about as we're reading more of these issues. So
homework. Okay.
Not. I just closed it down. Last year, maybe. All right. So last year, I think it was, I read or listened to an audiobook. It was basically a history of the character of Superman.
Okay.
And I think it's just called, if this is the right one, Superman by Larry Ty. Okay. So it's nonfiction. It's just the, history of Superman, the character, through comics, TV, movies, blah, 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 blah. So one of the things that the guy mentions in the book, once we get to this era of Superman, because we are in, this is the Reagan era, this is the 80s. It's all about excess. It's all about capitalism. It's all about, conservative values and all that stuff. And one of the comments that the author makes in the book is Superman, and I'm not trying to get us to go political in any way, but the guy makes this comment that Superman's political leanings depend on, of course, who's writing him at the time, and then kind of what's going on around, in the world at the time. And I think he actually does refer to this version of Superman as a conservative version of Superman. Now, if that's true, there's nothing about this that has Superman in this era that's really made me feel one way or the other. And in fact, when the fact that he just basically tells the police, I'm going in, and just ignores their authority at all. I don't know. It's just something that I don't put a lot of thought to it, but if it's something that you think about as you're reading these, do you?
Okay. I'll think about that. I have found that most times, if you, being the person doing this, not a particular you, but if you make some sort of pronouncement about larger scale things, you will see what you're looking for.
Yep.
Whether the reality of whether it's there or not is very difficult to convince that person because they're not removed from it. They think a certain way, and so it jades what they see or how they see it. So now that has been said, I may be able to find evidence of something like that, but to me, that still doesn't mean that it's fact. It still doesn't mean it occurred. I just saw something and I interpret it that way. So things like that, particularly when you're talking about broad strokes things, which that's all that people who are pundits do, is they talk about the big picture and they try to convince you that the big picture looks a certain way. That's what they do. And as a trained and working scientist, I trained in sciences in college, and I do science as my job. Once you get a particular thought in your head, you're gone. That will be your reality. So maybe that John Byrne, or maybe because of when he was but off the top of my head, I have seen creators at certain periods write characters leaning both ways, depending on the story that they're telling. Yeah. So saying that some, aspect of the character leans conservative, liberal, right, left, whatever indicator you want, I'm not sure you can ever say that about a character. You can say it given a particular creator. You can say it with the intent of the original creator. But beyond that, a fictional character is fiction. I mean, it's made up. So it's like, well, yeah. So, but okay, yeah, I'll definitely see if I see anything that I'm aware that makes me think that this Superman is trying to be leaned one way or another.
Billy D says, I prefer my superheroes not to have any glaring political leanings. It's probably why I prefer Lee Romita Spidey to Ditko Lee Spidey. That's not an indictment on Ditko, but just my preference. Yeah, I totally agree. Unless it's like a character, like if you're looking at the Justice League from this era, the new version of the Justice League, and the way Guy Gardner is portrayed as this, ultra conservative, Rambo loving, right? That kind of stuff. Just whether they take that political leaning, whether it's to the right, whether it's to the left, and they turn it into a joke, and they really just press that kind of stuff makes me laugh.
Now, take somebody like the Punisher. I think in order for the Punisher as a character to work, he has to have a particular leaning.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's not that, so, and Billy D, as far as Ditko's Spider-Man, I don't care how he's written. It is just beautiful to look at. I like Ditko's art, man. The Question is another one. The original Question. Now, if we want to go all the way back to Ditko's Question, yes. The Question that is Renee Montoya now, completely different character. So,
Well, and I think that's why I liked the way that the author put it, which was, if you're looking for Superman's political leanings, depends on who's writing it, and the only time you can really look at a character and say this person is this way is, like you said, when it comes to the original creator, especially if the character has only been done by that one creator in its entire life.
The original creator. Now, they, of course, yes, Billy, Renee Montoya is, she is the Question now after having been she was a cop. And then actually, I believe she was chief of police most recently in the book also. And she was questioned before she was chief of police. I think she kind of gave it up while she was the chief, but then she has lost that job and she has become the Question again, I think is what's
that was 52, wasn't it? The original that
she became the Question I believe so. Yeah. she's anyways, different character. I don't want to steal from the Superman show. But yeah, I think the only true judgment I think that you can put on a fictional character is by the original creator. Yeah. They obviously had something in mind when they first put pen to paper and they came up with this character. When other creators get a hold of it, I think the discussion would have to be, how did so-and-so use the character rather than anything about the character? Because the character, in ways in my mind, only exists for the original creator. That is the character. Beyond that, it's all very creator-driven.
Yep.
After that. I read some of the Denny O'Neil question. Can't remember the artist, but it was great. Yes, it was. I agree. This is a question podcast now. But yes, the Renee Montoya only the next season of the show is going to be the Spectre. Is it Hal Jordan? Is it the Jim Corrigan? Or is it the Crispus Allen Spectre? Or is it the unhuman hosted Spectre? Or so yeah,
that does not sound like a lot of fun at all.
We have all those aspects of the Spectre. Yes, the Golden Age Spectre is where we're going to start because that was the best Spectre. Golden Age, absolutely.
All right, I'll see if I can squeeze that in with all my dozens
with the
of
others.
other.
Yeah, the ElfQuest and Conan and the Proof, I think, and 8 different Superman shows, and so.
Well, only live once.
Oh, I'm not putting it down. I'm just letting the people know how busy a man you are. And he edits for other people too.
That's right.
By the way, so
I do.
So I don't. Yeah, I think we've said what we can say. I'll keep this in mind. Larry Ty, you said I'll look that up and see.
Yeah, I have a second one. What's the other one called? Well, there's a book by Tom DeHaven called It's Superman, and it is a fictional Superman story set in the Golden Age, but it's not. It's kind of an interesting twist on Superman.
Okay.
But the other one I had that one too is just called Superman, and it's by Glenn Weldon. I just started listening to that not that long ago, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In our next episode, Superman heads to Gotham City and comes face to face with its mysterious protector, Batman. Batman! But this is no friendly team-up. Superman sees Batman as a dangerous vigilante, while Batman has his own clever tricks to keep the Man of Steel at bay. Can these two heroes find common ground long enough to take down the ruthless Magpie? Well, Ed and I are going to get all up into that in episode 3 as we discuss the Man of Steel, number 3, One Night in Gotham City. Ed, any last thoughts?
Is this the first place that Magpie shows up?
Technically, no. There is a Batman issue that comes out that very same week, the same day, that has the Magpie in it.
Okay, because the image of John Byrne's Magpie is just burned into my head as kind of an iconic Byrne image.
Yeah.
So,
and,
cool.
And in case I completely forget this, when we talk about issue number 3, that issue of Batman, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it comes out the very same day, and it is considered Batman's first post-crisis appearance.
Oh, okay.
Even though chronologically, the story in that Batman issue takes place after the story in Man of Steel number 3.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I'll look that up and see if I have that and give that a read. Okay, cool beats.
All right. Until next time, folks, I'm Steven, and that's Ed. This was the Superman Super Show.
Ciao.
Bye. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. Questions and comments can be directed to the supermansupershow@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can help to boost our presence online by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. The Superman Super Show is a presentation of Steeven or Else Media. For more nerdy content just like this, check out SoManyPodcasts.com or use the link in your show notes. Superman is a registered trademark of DC Comics and was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
Superman is a copyrighted feature appearing in Action Comics magazine.
Oh, but wait, there's Superman. He'll save us. Superman! Superman! Wait, where are you going? Oh, to hell with him. We'll have to deal with these marauders ourselves.
And it is entitled The Story of the Century. It was written and penciled by John Byrne. Dick Giordano was the inker. The letters were by John Costanza. The colors were... how do you pronounce... Do you know Thomas Ziuko? That's how I've always said it.
Okay, that sounds fine because it can't be Zuko because who is that? That's a bad guy in Batman?
I think
Batman?
So.
Zuko might not be Thomas, but it was something Zuko?
Wasn't one of the guys in Greece also a Zuko? Danny Zuko?
Maybe Greece. Maybe that's where I'm thinking of it from. Yeah. But yeah, this ZI, so I would say Ziuko. Ziuko. Yeah, I'm not sure. We need to ask him sometime if we can ever find him.
I'll give him a call. I'll call my people. I'll have my people reach out.
There you go. Okay. I know a guy. Okay.
All right. I'm going to start that bit again.
Yes, Billy D. Dennis Cowan was the artist for that.
Dennis Cowan, yep.